Cleveland's front office has a problem of its own making. By choosing Dillon Gabriel over Shedeur Sanders early, they've tied their credibility to a third-round gamble, and now they're stuck defending it. Rather than acknowledge Sanders' clear talent, they've clung to Gabriel's middling output, hoping time will validate their draft day decisions. But as weeks pass, the disconnect grows. Fans see a stalled offense while the coaching staff sees a plan.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The longer they wait to insert Sanders, the more obvious it becomes. This isn't about readiness. It's about, and that reputation now hangs in the balance. If Sanders eventually steps up and outperforms Gabriel, as many expect, it forces a reckoning within the organization. Every game he sat becomes a question of missed opportunity. The Browns are playing a delicate game and they know it. Their draft integrity is at stake, and the player they're ignoring might be the one who saves them. All that's left is the right moment to prove it. The Cleveland Browns don't just have a quarterback problem, they have a credibility problem. And at the center of it is a decision that's starting to look more political than professional. Keeping Dillon Gabriel as the starter while Shedeur Sanders, a former Heisman winner and top draft prospect, remains glued to the bench. Week after week, Gabriel has struggled. The offense is stale. The rhythm is non-existent. The ceiling? Not even visible. Yet despite the poor performances and growing fan frustration, the Browns continue to stick with him. And now Mary Kay Cabot, one of the most trusted media voices around the franchise, has stepped in to publicly defend the move. Not question it. Not challenge it. Just support it. That's where this whole situation takes a sharp turn. Because when Mary Kay speaks, she's not just giving her take. She's reflecting the tone from inside the building. And when that tone sounds less like football analysis and more like damage control, people notice. Especially when that tone conveniently lines up with the narrative the Browns want out there. That Sanders is simply developing, that there's no need to rush, and that Gabriel's hold on the starting job is somehow justified. It's not. This isn't about development. This is about ego. About protecting front office decisions. About sticking with the guy they drafted higher, not the one who's arguably more. Dillon Gabriel was taken in the 3rd round. Shedeur Sanders fell to the 5th. That shouldn't be the whole story, but that's exactly what it's become. The organization is using draft position as the foundation for opportunity. Not performance. Not potential. Not what they see in practice. Just draft optics. And here's where the fanbase starts to lose patience. Because if you're watching these games, it's clear, Gabriel isn't improving fast enough to warrant this level of protection. He's a rookie who looks like a rookie, tentative, erratic, inconsistent. Meanwhile, Sanders has been tucked away on the depth chart, quietly working, showing up, doing everything right. And still nothing. Shedeur. What makes it worse is the way Shedeur is being framed. Not as a top-tier talent. Not as a legitimate option. But as a 5th-round pick. That phrase keeps showing up in media coverage for a reason. It's meant to lower expectations. It's meant to take the pressure off the coaching staff. It's meant to justify keeping him out of the... But calling Shedeur a 5th-rounder ignores everything that came before draft night. The accolades, the Heisman, the pre-draft buzz, his pedigree, his poise, his production, his football IQ. The reality is Shedeur wasn't passed on because he lacked talent. He was passed on because NFL teams make mistakes. It happens every year. And now, the Browns are compounding that mistake by refusing to give him the opportunity he deserves. Instead, they're hiding behind the idea of development. Saying it's better for him to wait. Saying they're protecting him. Saying this is all part of some long-term plan. Sideline? But who is this plan actually benefiting? Because it's not helping the offense. It's not helping the fans. And it's certainly not helping Shedeur, who's stuck watching a struggling quarterback eat up valuable reps. All because the team doesn't want to admit they might have gotten the order wrong on draft night. And then there's Deshaun Watson, the looming franchise quarterback. His name keeps getting floated as part of the equation, as if his return will magically reset the entire narrative. But that's not what's happening. His presence only complicates things further. Watson has been injured, unreliable, inconsistent. And now, even his return could be used as another excuse to delay Sanders' debut. Another reason to wait. Another week to punt the decision down the road. The Browns are running out of road. And they know it. That's why the talk is starting to shift to 2026. Draft rumors. Veteran signings. Future evaluations. As if this quarterback room hasn't even been settled, and they're already looking for the next one. It's not subtle. It's not encouraging. It's not smart. It's hedging, plain and simple. The most frustrating part is that this delay could actually set Shedeur up for success. If he comes in later in the season when expectations are low and the team is desperate, it gives him the chance to play hero. To walk into a chaotic situation and bring calm. That's the upside. That's what some people are holding on to as justification for the wait. But if that moment comes and he thrives, don't let the Browns rewrite history. Don't let them say, this was the plan all along. Because it wasn't. It was fear. It was draft pride. It was organizational hesitation. And if Shedeur succeeds, it will be because of who he is, not because of how the team handled him. And if he struggles? Well, then the fifth-round pick narrative writes itself. The delay becomes the scapegoat. The staff will say they were right to be cautious. That the calls to start him were premature. That's the trap. They've built the bar so high that when Shedeur finally steps on the field, he'll have to be perfect just to be seen as equal. That's not player development. That's setting someone up to carry the weight of weeks, if not months, of bad decisions. The Browns have turned this into a political decision. One driven more by internal optics than on-field need. And Mary Kay Cabot, whether knowingly or not, just gave them cover to keep doing it. Fans are tired of being told to trust the process when the process keeps protecting underperformance. They're tired of hearing fifth-rounder as a stand-in for not ready. They're tired of being asked for patience while watching the same mistakes happen year after year, quarterback after quarterback. If Sanders isn't given a shot soon, especially if Gabriel's struggles continue, this season won't just be remembered for poor execution. It'll be remembered as the year the Browns sat on a potential franchise quarterback and did nothing. And the window is closing. They can't keep hiding behind Watson, or Cabot, or development timelines. Eventually they have to let the best player play. Eventually they have to put talent over ego. And eventually they'll have to answer for why they didn't do it sooner. Let us know what you think. Should Shedeur already be starting? Is the organization delaying his debut to protect themselves? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you're fed up with the excuses, share this with someone watching the same mess unfold, and subscribe to keep following this storyline, because it's not over. Shedeur Sanders is ready. The real question is whether Cleveland's front office has the guts to admit it. And here's the brutal truth. Every week that Shedeur Sanders sits behind Dillon Gabriel is a week that confirms the Browns are playing not to win, but to protect themselves. The fans know it. The locker room probably knows it. And deep down, even the coaching staff knows it. But instead of adjusting, instead of being bold, they double down. They dig in. They defend. They point to development, as if that word is some magical shield from accountability. But what kind of development are we really talking about here? Shedeur Sanders isn't learning behind an elite veteran mentor. He's not sitting behind a Pro Bowl quarterback with years of experience and leadership to offer. He's sitting behind a rookie who's barely treading water in his own right. That's not development. That's limbo. And when Mary Kay Cabot, the mouthpiece of Browns inside circles, goes out of her way to publicly defend Kevin Stefanski's decision to keep Sanders on the bench, it doesn't just signal support. It signals alignment with an organizational mindset that's become obsessed with defending its own decisions, even at the cost of. Let's be clear, Mary Kay didn't betray Sanders by simply offering an opinion. She betrayed the possibility of fairness in a system that's already rigged by politics. Her defense of Stefanski's choice wasn't just commentary, it was cover. It gave the Browns the PR protection they needed to keep the status quo. And in a franchise where media narratives hold real sway, that matters. Because when a respected insider backs the decision, it makes it harder for fans to push back. It makes it easier for the front office to say, see? Everyone agrees. This is what's best. But it's not. It's what's easiest. There's a difference. Meanwhile, Shedeur sits. Quiet. Professional. Focused. Doing the work. But we all know that in the NFL, waiting quietly doesn't guarantee anything. If anything, it often leaves players behind. It gives coaches and execs permission to forget you. And when your draft label has already been used to reduce your value in the eyes of the organization, the margin for error gets smaller. The leash gets shorter. The opportunity window sideline. And this is a player who, by every credible metric, deserves more. This is a quarterback who dominated at the college level. Who was heralded as one of the smartest, most NFL-ready passers in his class. Who has arm talent, mobility, and pedigree on his side. Whose only crime was falling in the draft further than expected. A draft that, again, has never been a perfect science. But instead of trusting the tape, the Browns are trusting their pride. They're pretending that Gabriel gives them the best chance to win, when the product on the field tells a very different story. They're pretending that sitting Shedeur is for his own good, when in reality, it's for their own comfort. It's about avoiding the awkward moment where the better quarterback is the one they didn't believe in enough on draft night. And it's that awkward moment they're trying to dodge. Because once Shedeur steps onto the field, and performs well, which many expect, everything changes. The front office has to explain why he wasn't starting sooner. Stefanski has to justify why Gabriel got weeks of grace for mid-level play while Sanders was barely acknowledged. And the media? They'll have to rethink the narrative they've helped shape. Which is why the timing of his debut is so crucial. If Shedeur comes in during a late-season slump, when playoff hopes are already dashed, it gives the team plausible deniability. They can frame it as a let's see what we have move. Low stakes, low risk. And if he excels, they'll point to it as the long game paying off. If he struggles, they'll write it off as a trial run. But that's not leadership. That's crisis management. It's not about doing what's right for the future of the franchise. It's about managing optics. It's about finding the least damaging way to pivot. And it's a disservice to a player who could be so much more than a late season, because if we're being honest, the Browns need Shedeur Sanders more than they realize. Deshaun Watson's availability is unreliable at best. Dillon Gabriel isn't the answer. And the 2026 draft is a long way off, with no guarantees of securing a franchise guy. So why not invest in what you already have? Why not give the most talented quarterback on your roster a chance to prove it? Because doing so would require swallowing pride. It would mean admitting that draft position doesn't always equal production. It would mean potentially elevating a player the organization undervalued from the start. And let's be real, that's what this all comes down to. Draft politics. Ego. Image. It's not about protecting Shedeur Sanders from pressure. It's about protecting the Browns from embarrassment. But the longer they delay, the worse the optics get. And the more pressure builds. Because at some point the excuses won't hold up. The performances won't be defensible. And the calls for change will get too loud to ignore. And when that moment comes, the Browns will have a choice. They can continue clinging to a narrative that's already cracking, or they can lean into reality. A reality where Shedeur Sanders is more than a fifth-round pick. A reality where talent trumps draft bias. A reality where winning games becomes more important than winning because there's a real opportunity here. Not just to fix a broken offense, but to reset the future. To give fans a reason to believe. To build around a young, hungry quarterback who's been waiting patiently for his shot. And if they blow it? If they let draft bias, media spin, and organizational stubbornness get in the way? Then they'll have no one to blame but themselves. Because Shedeur's moment is coming. Whether they're ready or sideline. And when it happens, when Shedeur Sanders finally jogs out of that tunnel, helmet strapped and eyes locked in, the entire narrative will shift. Because this story was never really about whether he was ready. It was about control. It was about preserving the illusion that the front office knew best. It was about spinning underperformance into patience and turning bias into strategy. But once Sanders touches the field and shows flashes of the quarterback he's always been, all of that crumbles. Let's not forget, this is a player who didn't just earn attention because of his last name. He earned it because of his presence, his processing, his poise under pressure. The same qualities that had scouts comparing him to NFL starters are the ones being overlooked now, simply because Cleveland is more concerned with protecting its investments than maximizing its assets. And that's the part that's hard to swallow. The Browns didn't just pass over Shedeur on draft day. They passed him over again when they named Dillon Gabriel the starter. And now they're passing over him every week by sticking to a plan that's clearly, let's call it what it is. This team is in survival mode. Deshaun Watson's health is a wild card. Gabriel is struggling. The offense lacks rhythm. The locker room energy is flat. And the coaching staff? They're walking a tightrope between justifying past decisions and trying not to lose the season completely. This was supposed to be the year things clicked. Instead, it's turned into a masterclass in how to overthink yourself into. And in the middle of all this chaos is Shedeur Sanders, watching it unfold from the sidelines. Every wasted down. Every 3-and-out. Every defensive stop squandered. Every game slipping through the cracks. He's there for all of it, close enough to feel the tension, far enough to do nothing about it. That's the cruel irony. They're framing his benching as protection. But it's isolation. It's sidelining a potential solution in the name of waiting for the right moment. Let's be clear, there is no perfect moment. There's only momentum. And right now, Cleveland has none. They've got a locker room that's likely confused, a fan base growing restless, and a quarterback room that's less about competition and more about politics. And yet, Mary Kay Cabot steps in with her media piece and wraps it in a bow. This is all part of the plan. A plan for who? Because if the plan is to win games, you'd want the quarterback with the higher ceiling, the better arm, and the football pedigree. If the plan is to evaluate your talent, you don't let a season drift away while your most dynamic rookie gathers dust. And if the plan is about developing Sanders, why does it feel more like burying him? The truth is, the plan is about pride. It's about not admitting they miscalculated. About not wanting to look like they missed on Gabriel. About avoiding the moment where Shedeur walks onto the field and outshines the guy they bet on first. And when that moment comes, and it will, everything changes. If Shedeur plays well, the narrative flips overnight. Suddenly he's not the fifth-round pick, he's the overlooked gem. Suddenly the fans aren't just calling for him, they're demanding he stays. Suddenly, Stefanski has a full-on quarterback controversy on his hands. That's the power of performance. It shatters narratives. And the Browns are terrified of it. Because if Shedeur is better, and many think he is, then every week he sat becomes a bigger question mark. Every loss under Gabriel becomes harder to justify. Every statement defending the status quo starts to look like spin. And the Browns don't want that smoke. They want a clean timeline. A safe rollout. Preferably one where the stakes are low and the spotlight is dim. That's why they're slow playing this. That's why they're talking about veteran options and future drafts. That's why they're downplaying Shedeur's readiness while over-explaining Gabriel's inconsistency. But at some point, none of that matters. At some point, you have to let the best player play. Not the one with the safest PR arc. Not the one who fits the internal narrative. The best player. The one who gives your team a chance to win, not eventually but now. Because here's the thing, even if Shedeur struggles early, he's still learning on the field. He's still getting real reps. And if you truly believe he's the future of your franchise, then every snap is a step closer to that future. Every moment under center is a moment of growth. What isn't growth? Watching Dylan Gabriel throw checkdowns on 3rd and long. Watching the offense stall out in the red zone. Watching this team pretend it's fine while it leaks talent from the inside out. And the fans are seeing it. They're not fooled. They're tired of the excuses. They're tired of being told to trust the process, when the process looks like a cover-up. When it feels like they're watching the same movie over and over, different cast, same ending. Practicing you can't sell hope forever. At some point, people want to see results. And Shedeur Sanders is hope. He's the clean slate. The what if. The guy who could shift the energy, electrify the locker room and give fans a reason to tune in. But the Browns are scared of what that would, because if Shedeur thrives, it doesn't just change the depth chart, it challenges the foundation. It calls into question the people making these decisions. It highlights the gaps in the organization's ability to evaluate, adapt, and lead. And that's a spotlight they don't want. So instead, they hide behind phrases like, he's not ready yet. They frame every decision as forward-thinking. They wrap it in professionalism and call it patience. But patience is only a virtue when it's leading somewhere. And right now, all it's leading to is more of the same. More of Gabriel being serviceable. More of Stefanski playing it safe. More of Mary Kay echoing the front office's talking points like it's gospel. But fans don't want gospel. They want guts. They want a team that's willing to take a risk. That sees talent for what it is, not where it was drafted. That isn't afraid to admit when something isn't working. That's what leadership looks like. And if the Browns had any, they'd already be giving Shedeur Sanders the reps he's earned. They'd be saying, we owe it to this team to put the best product on the field. They'd be brave enough to pivot, even if it means admitting they got it wrong. Because getting it wrong is human. Staying wrong out of fear? That's cowardice. There's only so long you can hold back a quarterback with Shedeur Sanders' kind of resume before the locker room starts to shift. Before veteran players start raising eyebrows in meetings. Before the defensive unit, carrying the weight of the team week after week, starts wondering why the other side of the ball isn't doing its part. That's how locker room fractures begin. Quiet at first, then louder. And the media will catch on too, because eventually even Mary Kay Cabot won't be able to spin the numbers. When you're looking at a third-rounder with multiple games of sub-200-yard performances and stalled-out drives, the optics start to collapse under their own weight. At some point, no amount of "we're developing him" rhetoric can cover for the fact that the offense is lifeless. That's when fans start chanting. That's when "we want Sanders" becomes a chant you can hear through the broadcast. And if you think that doesn't matter, think again. This is Cleveland. This is a city that lives and breathes football. The fans are loyal but not blind. They've been through enough false starts to recognize one when it's happening again. All they want is something real to believe in. And Shedeur represents that. Not because he's a guaranteed savior, but because he hasn't been tainted yet. Because he hasn't been thrown into the fire just to be a scapegoat. Because right now he's still potential. Still promise. And if you're the Browns, the smartest thing you can do is stop trying to control the story, and let the kid write his own. Because if you wait too long, if you bury him in depth charts and backroom politics, you run the risk of killing the very thing that makes him valuable: momentum. There's only so much momentum a player can generate from practice clips and sideline posture. At some point he needs snaps. Not just to grow but to matter. And the longer you delay, the more it looks like fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of change. Fear of the future arriving before you're ready. But newsflash, the future doesn't care if you're ready. It comes anyway. And when it knocks, Shedeur Sanders will be standing at that door, prepared, waiting, and more than capable of stepping through. The only question is whether the Browns will have the sense to let him. If you've been following this saga and you're as fed up as we are with the excuses, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you trust the Browns' plan, or is this just another case of talent being held hostage by draft politics? Like, share, and subscribe for more breakdowns just like this. Because the day Sanders takes that first snap, the real story begins.